Welcome to Hot Spots on the United America Network. From the shifting landscapes of politics and culture to the urgent challenges facing our planet and our communities, this is where the conversations that matter most come alive. With her experience as a journalist, legislator, and activist, Kay Brown brings sharp insight, uplifting perspective, and unflinching courage to the issues shaping our future. Get ready for candid conversations, bold ideas, and the pushback our times demand. Now, here's Kay.
Welcome to Hot Spots. So glad you're joining us. The destabilizing situation in our country drags on. It's a new year, but unfortunately on the civic front, it's just getting worse. And the signs are it's going to keep getting worse. There's so much going on, and the news is absolutely overwhelming. The outrageous actions of ICE, the destruction of the international rule of law, taking over Venezuela for its oil, threatening Greenland and these other countries, and who knows what's next. But in this podcast, we're going to focus on Trump's cruel, counterproductive deportation policies. Trump claims that more than 600,000 immigrants were deported last year and several million more self-deported. It's chilling what ICE, the Immigration Customs Enforcement Group, is doing now. In addition to the escalating violence, threatening and shooting and killing people, they've launched an aggressive multi-million-dollar recruitment campaign using social media and online influencers. The agency strategy, which has been described as wartime recruitment, is trying to hire thousands more agents by spending $100 million on a one-year advertising blitz. They're offering significant incentives, signing bonus of up to $50,000, student loan repayment options, and the removal of age limits. A DHS spokeswoman claimed that the campaign has been wildly successful, but others point out that if it were so successful, they wouldn't need to be lowering the requirements, because we're going to see a lot of unqualified, undertrained people on the streets. What's coming is a huge explosion in the number of Trump's personal thugs turned loose to terrorize even more of the undocumented, as well as citizens and people who happen to look or sound like Latinos or foreigners. Demonize, detain, deport. That is the path Trump has been gleefully and relentlessly pursuing against undocumented immigrants from the start of his second term. We're feeling the effects here in Southern California, where ICE raids have recently picked up. As people's lives are upended, people are being forced into hiding, afraid even to go to the grocery store or the healthcare clinic, and children being kept home from school, workers not showing up for work, and those who do are doing so at great personal risk. I'm grateful that our community is rallying to support and defend our neighbors, and we'll share with you some ways that you can help. My guest is Christian Quevedo, and I'm so pleased to welcome him to this conversation today. Christian is a Coachella Valley native. He's born and raised in Indio, California. He's an accomplished singer and actor whose work spans opera, musical theater, choral music, oratorio, and solo performance, with appearances both regionally and nationally. We're going to chat about the situation and his personal experiences, but first, I want to set the stage just a bit further. As LA Times columnist Gustavo Arellano pointed out recently, anyone could be illegal now. If you dare to show decency to people without papers, you could be an enemy of Trump's state. Last fall, around Thanksgiving, on Trump's Truth Social, he declared immigration to be the leading cause of social dysfunction in America and insisted that only reverse migration can fully cure the situation. And by reverse migration, he apparently means large-scale removal and deportation of immigrants, including potentially those with legal status or even naturalized citizens, or even born-here citizens he considers disruptive. Trump vowed to permanently pause migration from all third world countries. He said he wants a major reduction in disruptive populations. Anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country or non-compatible with Western civilization are in his target. Reverse migration is a concept that goes back to the days of slavery, when some wanted freed black people sent back to Africa. Trump has proposed to deport from this country anyone who isn't 100% with him, even if you're a citizen or a legal resident. Wow, think about that. I want to turn now to my guest, Christian Quevedo, and get his thoughts on the situation. Christian, tell me a little bit about yourself and what motivates you to be involved.
Well, first off, I will say thank you for having me. This is amazing what you're doing here. I think to answer your question, I think what really motivates me is a sense of family and community. I think as a performer and an educator, I really have to put myself in the shoes of not just myself, but many characters, and put myself before my students and be able to, in a sense, be motivated to put out hope. I think hope is so rare these days, and people everywhere are losing it, not just with the situation with immigration, but in general, different communities are going through different things. And I think it's really easy to lose that hope and be able to get it back. So I feel like with my platform and being a performer and a teacher, it's kind of nice to say, hey, wait a minute, not all is lost. And I think that really motivates me as a performer and an educator to give that back as much as I can.
I understand you have direct experience with relatives being deported. Tell me about that. What's their situation? What happened? Did they get due process?
And I want to preface before I say this has been going on way before now. This has been, the Latino community has been facing immigration issues since forever. And now we're in a situation where we're under the microscope. The community is facing these situations. And the first time I experienced this was with my own mother, who she had to leave the country for 10 months. I was only 5. And so I think back now to these situations where, my relatives have had to leave their families behind. They've had to leave their kids behind. And I think about those FaceTime good nights and the FaceTime air hugs because you're not physically there with your family. And due process is really difficult to understand in these situations when you're not there. There's so much language barriers. There's so much situations where you're not really understanding what's being thrown at you. And so when we experienced this situation with my uncles, it was more of trying to understand, well, did you have rights in the moment? What questions were asked? And back in March, they were doing these things where ICE agents weren't really wearing anything ICE to identify them. It was particular clothing, just badges thrown at people. And mind you, these are people who, in my uncle's cases, have their work visas. They've been legal here. They've been here for 30 plus years, no criminal background, no criminal record of any kind, checking in and out as their visa requirements require them to do. It's hard to understand why that would be something that just, was their due process. That's our question to this day. And yeah, there's been cases where you hear that's a thing where, okay, they didn't get due process, but when there's language barriers, again, what is due process for our community, and did they understand? So that was our situation. We were kind of going through the motions of, what did they ask? What did they say? Did they tell you anything? And then the fact of not knowing, that was kind of what is more concerning, is you're waiting for answers and you're kind of getting them very slowly. So I guess the name of the game is time, and you don't know what that means. You're just waiting.
So they are deported now?
Yes, so they're back in Guatemala, and it's home, but what is home if you were not born and raised here, but you pretty much have done your whole life here, 30 plus years of living here in California, and in their case, they were out in Arizona, and so that's mostly where the red states seem to have started the raids quicker than California, and so by the time we got wind of it, it was rough because you're trying to figure out, what can I do? Where can I go to? Who do I call? And your first instinct in situations like that is like, well, let me find a lawyer. But then you call a lawyer and you find out, well, it's thousands of dollars to get things going. And in our situation, we were fortunate enough to be able to do that. But there's so many families right now who don't. There's so many families who don't even know where their significant others have been deported to. You have children involved. You have parents with children who are being just taken. And quote unquote, it's always this thing of like, oh, it's exaggerated. But that's literally what it is. You're taken from one place, put somewhere else, and it leads you to think, where are they? Are they okay? And it's that worry of not knowing.
Could they return if they wanted to?
So that's currently the process at the moment. It's the waiting of seeing if there's anything that can be done. They'll give you a paper trail and say, okay, you don't have any criminal record. They say it's a little bit easier. They say you'll be able to come back in said months. But then once the paperwork is in, you're not the only person applying for permission to come back. There's thousands of other people trying to do the same. So it just takes a bit of time and patience. And even now, I have my grandfather who was in the process of getting his visa to visit, and that's been on hold because of the whole situation with deportation. And so right now it's just a waiting game to see when they'll be able to return. But that's kind of where we're at right now.
So how would you describe the effect that this whole situation is having on your family, has had on your family?
Like I said earlier, I first experienced that with my own mother when she was trying to come into the state and fix her legal status here. She had to leave the state for 10 months. I was only 5 at the time. And so I remember, wow, my mom's gone for like 10 months. And we were here with our dad, but it was hard because you don't have your family, you don't have your part of your family with you. And so I think to answer your question, that's kind of what has been hard to see on the other side now, seeing nieces and nephews with dad's not here, dad's far away. And then how do you explain to 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds where dad is and what that means to the household? And in this case, they're the breadwinners of their household. So wives have to not only be moms, but now have to step out and get a job and provide more for their kids on top of already having a full-time job, being a mom and taking care of a household and kids and school. It's just, you get to see that side of the coin that you don't really pay attention to when you're little. And to me, it just feels full circle to see it happening. And yeah, it creates a sense of helplessness. It's a bit of heartbreak. It's hard to see that. And you think about it and you're like, it's not just my family going through it. It's thousands of families going through it at the moment, especially right now during the raids, during the holidays. And you think about that and you're like, oh my God, on Christmas, on Thanksgiving, on New Year's, starting off the new year, waking up and realizing, oh, my dad's not here, or my mom's not here, or my grandparents, or my uncles. And again, it may sound dramatic, but I think that's the reality of what it is, and that's the reality of what our community is feeling. It's like, you're here and then you're gone. And so it makes you think about, it puts a lot of things in perspective for me, that's for sure.
What are some of the things going on in our area in our community to help support immigrant families and people who are in danger of being deported?
I mean, for starts, what you're doing, this is great. I think talking about it, I think that's the first step into creating that help. But like Todec here in the Coachella Valley, who's providing you meals to homes to people who are too afraid to go out and get food. There's churches like United Methodist Church of Palm Springs, who they're very involved with helping and bringing the community together and keeping them informed. I know they have immigration meetings where they get together and talk about how the church can help, what the church can do. And there's other churches here in the Valley who are also partaking in that. But I think a lot of the ways to help in this scenario is just really talking about it, really bringing forward. We've heard it during 2020 and during the Black Lives Matter movement. It was more of like, call out injustice when you see it, but also be very informed before you do it and be very factual before you do it, especially because violence is attached to it now. And so it's a little more dangerous to bring it up, but I think communities are understanding.
So how can people who are concerned help Are there specific things that you would recommend, and what is TODAC?
To answer your question, there are a lot of ways to help. Is really about maintaining the communication with your cities, reaching out to your mayor, reaching out to organizations like TODAC, for example. TODAC is a company out here who is bringing food to families who are too afraid to leave their home. They are very involved in maintaining the safety of people leaving their homes for the sake of them being scared. And so there's a lot of organizations like churches out here, like United Methodist Church of Palm Springs. They're very involved. They have immigration meetings, and they're open to anyone who wants to be a part of them. And they get together and talk about how churches can be of help. What are church protocols if ICE were to come into your space, or to your church, or to anywhere, schools as well. I know a lot of schools have a lot of assistant programs for kids, especially like a little bit of counseling. Should they feel like they find themselves scared and vulnerable, they have someone to talk to about it. So there's a lot of safety nets that are happening, but it's not safety nets that are like right in your face. It's about really searching them up. I know with my family, we've had to like sit down and find resources or places for people to go, or to reach out to lawyers even. There's a lot of financial things that have to happen with paperwork, and a lot of these families can't afford it, but there are organizations here in the Valley who have that connection. And churches, has their website up as well that you could go to whatever city you're in. You go to your city website and find information on how to help. And again, just really the best way of helping is what you're doing, talking about it, bringing people and sharing stories, and being able to make viewers and people around you more something to relate to. And I think this is definitely helping.
So in the Latino community, is there a sense of getting organized or retreating to avoid being seen, or how are people experiencing this situation?
And it's such a weird, and to address your question more clearly, it's very interesting to watch what a community resorts to solve a problem. And I think now the community's kind of past the blame game on whose fault this is and why this went this way and why it's happening. And I think right now the sense of community is really hitting. Like, you see a lot of more people talking about it. You see a lot of people calling it out, like we've seen in recent situations, people recording injustice, people sharing it on social media and calling people out. And in the Latino community, I think that's happening now more and more. People are they've stopped being scared, and I think now it's a lot of people are determined to fight back. A lot of people who are not criminals, a lot of people who have been here with proper paperwork and legalities, and they've been here for years, and the U.S. is their home. This is all they know, and I think the community's waking up. I've talked to a lot of friends and colleagues who share similar experiences, and you have people reaching out, writing letters to the White House and to their mayors and to their Congress people, and sharing their stories and really voicing how they've been affected and offering solutions. And that's really nice to see in the community, because you tend to grow up with these, well, keep it quiet, it'll work out and it'll get solved. But I think now it's the other way around. They're really sharing their stories and they're speaking up, and I think people are listening. People are starting to listen, and it takes a minute, like anything, but I'm really happy that I see more of it. And even myself, aside from being a performer, I tend to be a little shy in speaking, but I've learned to exercise my right to speak up and do it in a way that's eloquent and educated and informed. And that's what I always tell my family. I'm like, if you're going to share anything, make sure it's well-facted. Make sure that it's coming from a place that's relatable to you, because that's the only way people listen. And so it's been great to see the community wake up and really speak up about it.
Are people focusing on the elections coming up this year, 2026?
Oh, yeah. Even within my family, there's talks about what they're seeing with the current administration. And it's not so much of like, what's wrong and what's this? It's more so of like, okay, we're awake. We're awake, and it's definitely going to show at the next election for sure. And I can guarantee you that the Latino community is going to be voting very strongly, those that can vote. So I'm excited for that, to see it. It'll be great.
It's crucial that we have a huge turnout and that we take into account all these things. This one major thing we can do, besides showing up and protesting and making it clear that these actions are unacceptable. And I'm going to close with a recent piece of good news. The Supreme Court is finally holding the line on Trump's ability to deploy the military in our communities. Just before the end of the year, a consequential development took place on the Supreme Court's shadow docket, where decisions are made without the benefit of full briefing or argument. The court split 6-3, with Roberts, Barnett, Kavanaugh, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson concurring in the result. So we had some of the conservatives joining the liberals there. That's a change. The decision was procedurally narrow, ruling that Trump failed to demonstrate he had the authority to deploy the National Guard to Illinois. But because it was on the shadow docket, it has limited applicability. Nonetheless, it's encouraging because it indicates the majority is not willing to buy Trump's argument that the president has the authority to deploy troops whenever and wherever he wants to. And the decision was also significant because Kavanaugh took the opportunity to walk back his previous horrific suggestion that ICE and CBP, the Customs and Border Protection, could briefly stop people based on race, language, and neighborhood. Kavanaugh was widely criticized for this unconstitutional suggestion, but as a result of it, in a concurring opinion, ICE and the CBP began detaining and holding people based on skin color. Without referring to his earlier racist concurring opinion, Kavanaugh attempted to reverse the notion that ICE and CBP could stop people on the street and hold them for days based on their race, language, or location. Unfortunately, Kavanaugh's walk-back footnote likely will not end these race-based unconstitutional stops by ICE and CBP. The damage is done and continues to be done to thousands of residents and citizens being illegally detained. And it's a sad situation, but the court does seem to be stepping up, and that's encouraging. So that's all for now. Stay strong, keep resisting, and see you next time on Hotspots.
You've been listening to Hotspots with Kay Brown, where tough issues meet thoughtful conversation. Stay engaged, stay inspired, and join us again as we spotlight the struggles, solutions, and stories that fuel resilience and change. Until next time, keep your fire burning. Hotspots is a production of the United America Network and is available on most major podcast platforms, as well as from UnitedAmericaNetwork.com. This is what democracy sounds and looks like